heck, it's always bug season in Texas, and that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just type in Grandeur Pet Solutions, and we are so happy that they're title sponsor for OutDrank The Coverage in 2023. L4 Media, we talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2A in Texas. We talk East Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. So like and subscribe and check us out. Well, if you're a fan of college Texas teams, mainly the two big ones, or the Dallas Cowboys, this was an absolute shitty weekend. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett, intern Noe, OutDrank The Coverage right here on L4 Media. Brought to you guys by Grandeur Pet Solutions. And no, I'm not so sad about the game that I'm just feeling down. I was sick this weekend, just now getting over it, but the football didn't help. But we'll talk about that. We're going to do a little something different today on the first part of the show. But until then, before we get there, intern Noe, how are you doing and what are you drinking?
Well, health-wise, I'm fine.
Mental health-wise, you're not?
Mental health-wise, no. So I had to turn to an old friend.
Uh-oh. Oh, he brought back the MD 2020.
Yep, old red grape wine. Cheers, buddy. What are you drinking?
Water. I'm just drinking water. Had some Theraflu earlier, drinking water, just trying to get better. All right, so, we could do what you're supposed to do in sports talk. I learned this in talk radio class 101 back in 2002. Dr. Haskins, hope you're doing well down in Galveston. But you always put the big topic, the candy segment to the end. I'm not like that. Screw that. We're going to just do it all at once. We're going to make it like a big old bowl of shit soup. So what we're going to do is talk about the A&M loss, the Longhorn loss, and the Cowboys loss all this weekend. Go Rangers. Thank God you're saving us. I haven't said that since 2011. But what I want to do is I want to put a positive spin on this as much as we can. And we're going to do that. We're going to take those three games. I know we're kind of combining college and NFL into one section for the first part of this show, and that's fine. That's our show. We can do what we want. But we're going to talk about where these teams go after this most recent loss and which team, in your opinion, is closer to a goal than the other two, or basically how close are all three to obtaining whatever their goal is. I think and let's set the goals right now. I think for the Cowboys, it's the NFC title game. Yeah, I know Super Bowl, blah, 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 NFC title game first and foremost. I think for the Aggies, it's playing in the SEC championship game. And then for Texas, I think it's a playoff spot and Big 12 championship game. Kind of lump those together because I think they kind of go hand in hand with Texas moving over into SEC next year. This is like, you feel like their last easiest chance to make a playoff, and they still can. So we're going to do that. We're going to dissect all three games, and then we're going to talk about it. I say we start with probably the least the least talked about of the weekend, just simply because of OU and Texas rivalry, and of course Dallas and all them. Let's talk A&M and their loss to Alabama. Once again, though, intern Noe, they give the Tide everything they can handle, and A&M almost pulled off the win.
They did, and hey, kudos to Saban. Kudos to trusting Jalen Moreau. Their run offense wasn't really doing much in this game. They only had 23 net yards rushing, which is very, very crazy when you thinking about it being Alabama. But they went into a hostile environment in College Station. Milroe got over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Aggies had their backup quarterback Max Johnson, but he played fairly well. and it was a tight game, and Alabama came out with the win. I mean, I was really impressed with Alabama, but I was also impressed with how well Texas A&M played overall.
Yeah, you bring up the point about the run game. Neither team could run the ball. A&M ran for 23 yards, as you talked about. The Aggies rushed for 67 yards. Now, Levon Moss did do a good job of just kind of grinding out some drives for A&M. But first off, this game speaks to where the SEC is. For all the talk about the SEC and defense and all that and run game, the SEC is now fully involved into the throw it all over the field. I felt all year that the biggest issue with Alabama wasn't Milroe or whoever they play at quarterback. For all the talk about Bob O'Brien, the dude's got a really good offensive mind, and he's especially at the college level. He has been at the cutting edge of a lot of the route tree concepts and passing that you see in college football that is now moved up into the pros. But the issue has been running the ball, and the same thing with Alabama. I mean, with A&M, these two teams can throw the ball, but they can't run the ball. But honestly, who in the SEC can right now? Georgia's about the only one that I think of that consistently run the ball. The SEC is a passing league now, folks.
Yeah, Ole Miss is a close second, but they usually abandon it in big games.
And they use their pass game to set up their run game.
Yeah, I mean, Dart usually is in the top 3 of their rushing attack, and
Yeah, good point.
he got like about 40, 50 yards a game, the starting quarterback. But I mean, they have 2 or 3 really good running backs they could deploy. But yeah, during big games like the one they had against, Alabama and then played Georgia, like the running game kind of does go away. So yeah, it is more of a passing league, passing conference. In Alabama, it was more of a recent thing. I think Tua Tagovailoa kind of started that trend. They did experimented with it a little bit in 2014 or 15. I think that first year of the college football playoffs.
Yeah, they
I
threw
think it
the
was,
ball more.
yeah, I think that was the first year they kind of experimented with it just because of necessity. And I think that was when they had Mari Cooper. I think it was Cooper. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was kind of that they had an asset they could use. Um, but yeah, I mean, now the recruiting has changed. There's top receivers. Uh, but yeah, I mean, hey, this is the type of win Alabama's gonna probably have to have the rest of the year. It's not going to be easy or beautiful for them, but they kind of knocked A&M off the path to a division championship. I mean, season's far from over. None of the SEC teams looks really good. Even I wouldn't even say Georgia does, even though they look like they kind of figured it out on offense.
Or Kentucky's just not there yet.
Or Kentucky is just not there yet. But yeah, I don't know, man. I like the fact that the SEC is either getting competitive, or I mean, like most of the mid tier teams are starting to the Georgias and the Alabamas, the LSU's, which is good for the conference. Competition is good for the overall for football in general. It's really good because especially for someone like me, I don't have a favorite team in college football, so I'm just enjoying watching any kind of upset or potential upset.
Well, I will say this. I think that how the OU Texas game was played, I saw a lot of articles on Sunday, Saturday night, and this morning talking about, for all the talk about is OU and Texas ready for SEC, maybe the question should be, is the SEC ready for OU and Texas? Because, I mean, OU and Texas both look, and I know we're talking A&M, but just to we're bleeding it into the SEC, I promise. But for all the talk about, some people are going to joke, "Oh, I guess Texas really isn't back because they lost." I like what Ivan Maisel said. You just stop. This wasn't Texas didn't lose standing by losing this game. This was a battle of two top 10, probably top 5 teams that came down to an amazing final 2 minutes of football total with what Texas did and then how OU responded. And so maybe the SEC needs to be worried about them coming in more than OU and Texas coming into the SEC.
Well, if anything, at least Alabama needs to clean up their mistakes. They had a lot of mistakes in this game. If they're going to even want to think of competing against Oklahoma and Texas on the field or recruiting, they're going to have to play cleaner football because, I mean, they had a bunch of false starts. I mean, it cost them almost 100 yards, almost the length of a football field in penalties. So, and they turned the ball over a couple times too. And I'm not downplaying A&M when I say that. I mean, A&M is a good team. Jimbo Fisher is on the hot seat. They have an offensive coordinator that could potentially be their future head coach, and
Oh,
Bobby Petrino.
oh,
Kind of similar situation with the Washington Commanders, but we'll get to the
oh.
NFL later. Uh,
Boy,
it,
you just hang on. I think you put dirt already on an Aggie grave right there. I
no,
I think if they do find the money to get rid of Jimbo, I think it's a complete clean out everything, start zero over. There's no way you can introduce Bobby Petrino as your head coach. I don't think a college program out that's bigger than small D1 could put that man as the head of your program and expect to have good things happen to it.
he's a good recruiter. He's have an proven track record in college football of being successful.
And to being a very bad person that sleeps around with secretaries. I don't that man's chance. And then also just the fact how he treated the Atlanta Falcons. I would love it just for the drama. It would be
Yeah,
freaking
me
fun to
too.
watch. But yeah, if you're gonna get rid of Jimbo, you clean out. But let's go ahead and talk about all that. All right. So, Aggies last year, that was the year, or was it like, yeah, last year was supposed to be the year they were going to, they were going to do it. They had all of these young freshmen, but they were all so damn good. They were going to step right in and be national champion contenders. And that never felt like a realistic, and it wasn't. All right. So this year they kind of started with very little fanfare, and I kind of thought that was a good thing. I think their program, they're kind of like the Cowboys. You kind of want them to do their things in the shadows, because if when things start getting good in the Aggies, they start thumping their chest a lot, and and the media eats it up, and the fans eat it up, and they get to be where they're way better or way worse than they really are. And the Cowboys are like that too. The media they either they want to ride the Cowboys up or they want to bury them. They never can find that middle ground. So this year it started kind of quiet, and they lost to Miami. We'll talk about Miami here in a minute. They lost to Miami, but that happens early up. Since then, they'd won 3 in a row. They'd beat an okay Auburn team. They'd beat an Arkansas team that feels like that for the next 5 years, Arkansas is going to always be, well, they're good, but they're not as good as their record or whatever. But I felt that there was some good positive vibes coming for Alabama. I still feel that after this Alabama game. I don't think that this game knocks. I'm still as I don't know if I'm bullish on Aggies, but I'm still as okay with A&M now as I was before this game.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you look at this game, they hung with Alabama has a tradition under Saban. They are the big bullies. They have 5-star starters and 5 and 4-star backups.
Yeah.
There's a lot of depth with Alabama. A&M, the one thing I will say about Jimbo Fisher, he's doing well, is recruiting. Portion of that is him. Portion of that is just being in the SEC.
Yeah.
Now, going back to what you were saying to start the podcast, in general, all the SEC teams, they will be affected with Oklahoma and Texas coming into the conference on a recruiting standpoint. I really feel that Missouri and A&M kind of benefited from it from the early onset,
Oh yeah.
just by having that SEC brand attached to them. How that affects the rest of the conference going forward with UT and Oklahoma and how well funded they are and their tradition, their history is yet to be seen. I mean, I feel it will be a seismic shift, just my prediction. I'm not sure how it's going to affect everybody, but now going back to A&M, they started backup quarterback Max Johnson. He did find his brother again for a touchdown.
Yep.
I really think A&M is on the right track.
Yeah, I do too.
But I think there needs to be change at the top because it just seems like they're just spinning in circles right now.
Okay, but so I was literally about to say, that's crazy you say that, because I was literally about to say the most Aggie thing would be to do is if let's say Jimbo and let's so Jimbo and the Aggies, they have Tennessee next week,
Mhm.
South Carolina the week after, or excuse me, there's a bye, then Ole Miss, then Mississippi State, then the famous SEC Week 9 game where it's Abilene Christian, and then they finish with LSU. I legitimately think that you look at that team, you look at the A&M, and they can win out, or they could lose all the ranked games and beat all the teams they should beat. I'm going to call the middle. I think they beat Ole Miss. I mean, I think they beat Tennessee. I think they beat A&M or LSU. But I think they lose to Ole Miss. So that would give them, what are they right now? 4-2. So 5-2, 6-2, 6-3, 7-3, 8-3. 8-4, a good bowl game. Not a great bowl game, a good bowl game. To me, the most Aggie thing would be to do then is to fire your coach and have to start all over. Because
Yeah.
this isn't the thing about if you're making the right steps forward under a coach. If you change that out, that all goes back to zero because you got a new coach, new everything else. So I unless they just completely collapse this year, I don't think Jimbo has now become their Mac Brown. And so what Jimbo needs is he needs an iconic player to play at quarterback or something like that, like what Mac Brown finally got with Vince Young. And you're going to completely change how you feel about Jimbo Fisher if you're an Aggie fan. And let's be honest, they have not had a dynamic quarterback since Jimbo Fisher has been the head coach there.
Yeah, it was just shocking because he had Jameis Winston at Florida State, and it seemed like he was getting good recruits. But yeah, ever since Jameis Winston, like he really hasn't had an elite level quarterback.
By recruiting stars, Haynes King from Longview, he was a 5-star quarterback. I never understood it. All Longview jokes aside, if you don't know, I'm from Marshall. That's a blood rival from almost the Civil War days. We all hate
And we
each
will
other.
be talking about Haynes King later on.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. But he was a 5-star guy or 4-star guy. So I mean, it's not that they haven't got the recruits; they just haven't happened. Now, I don't think that Aggies didn't develop King. Like I said, I never understood the King that big of a. I think he was a benefit of a very talented team and system in Longview. But anyway, I think the Aggies are going to be fine. Now, how close are they to a SEC title game? They're going to be further next year with Oklahoma and A&M because no matter how they do the divisions, I do not see a division where A&M's not in with both of them. I mean, it's just natural to kick A&M or to kick Alabama over to the West and maybe one other team, and then you keep LSU, Texas A&M, OU, and Arkansas. That right there is just the makings of love. That's the Southwest Conference and the Big Eight of the '80s and '70s put together to where every game in the Southwest is going to, or in the SEC West is just going to be an absolute dogfight every week. And that's what we're here for. That's why we want this conference to happen.
Yeah, I could see maybe because right now let me look at it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the East and 7 in the West. So I think maybe Arkansas might move over to the East, but you kind of want that Southwest Conference rivalry there with Texas and Oklahoma. Right now, I see Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, or maybe LSU moves over to the East. No, let's wait. They're way too west. Yeah, Alabama, Auburn, they're in the same state. They have to stay. Mississippi State and Ole Miss have to stay. Texas, Oklahoma, they're border states. But yeah, Arkansas, no, not even
No,
Arkansas. They're way too west. I can't really see another team. It would just be a stacked West unless
just move Bama and Auburn over to the East, and there you go.
but then it'd be stacked on the East.
Well, I mean, both would be stacked at that
You'd have
point.
to move. You'd have to move. No, I'm saying as far as like you want to even split.
No, I'm saying if you got Texas and OU coming in,
Yeah, they're going to go to the West.
and then you move Auburn and Alabama over to the West.
They are already in the West.
I mean, over to the East. That's what I'm saying. You move them over to the East.
Okay,
That's your split right there. You keep the Texas schools, you keep OU, you keep Arkansas and LSU all together, and you add Mississippi and Mississippi State, which I think would be really good rivals for. I think the West would be a fun conference, and then you put Alabama and Auburn over into the East. I know Georgia's not going to have like that, but oh well. And then there you go, and you've got two divisions of football that are just going to be every week almost absolutely a blast to watch.
Yeah, but like there's gonna be 2 teams added, and there's 7 teams in each division. So only one team can really move over to the East.
Why?
Because right now, if you add Texas and Oklahoma to the West, it'll be 9. And then according to you, if you move Alabama and Auburn to the East, now the East will have 9 and the West will have 7. So you got to there just has to be one team you got to move out of there. The only one I would say makes the most sense because they don't have multiple teams in the state would be Arkansas, but they're still geographically pretty west.
You're not I don't know. I still think you still just go Alabama and Auburn over to the East, and I don't get the issue with that. That feels like the most natural split.
I mean, because they border Florida, so they would be the most East team. Yeah, I get that part. But then at that point, then the East is going to have 9 teams. You got to move someone from the East over to the West to make it 8-8, unless they want to do a 9-7 division split.
I mean, I don't have a problem with that.
I guess as a numbers guy, I kind of do. I mean, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, they have to be in the same division. Maybe Missouri move over to the West, make it more of a sort of Big 12, sort of Southwest Conference.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually you just brought up a really good point. I don't think we've all of us that have had fun doing this. We always keep taking about what are we going to take out of the West, but you're right. Just I think Missouri, that makes a lot of sense right there. Actually, Missouri or Vanderbilt. And I don't care about where they actually are in the country. I mean, hell, dude, Dallas plays in the NFC East, and neither one of us would ever want that to change. And that,
if I wasn't a Cowboy fan, I would push for a realignment in the NFL.
Well, yeah, I would too, but because we're not, I mean, because we are and we love our rivals. So again, I have no problem if technically Vanderbilt's more west of Missouri, but Missouri feels like the more natural, connection there.
Correct. Yeah. So move Alabama, Auburn to the east, Missouri to the west. We've solved it for Greg Sankey.
Yeah, there you go. As simple as that.
He is welcome.
Yeah, and they could also do the other thing where they just play round robin and you don't have conference or divisions. But I think my theory has always been that them and the Big Ten will eventually combine and just become the college football league, and it'll be like the NFL. So I think you want every. The CFL, seriously. Or you could, college football, CFAL, College Football American League, or whatever you wanted to do. But anyway, so for Aggies, this kind of felt like this was kind of their year to maybe sneak into that SEC championship game without as much road blocking in the middle. Now, they could also tell you that they feel that if you get rid of A&M and Auburn, and let's say you bring Missouri over, that they might feel that the road gets unblocked because Alabama's not there. But I think that I think no jokes on the Texas A&M rivalry. I think Texas and OU all of a sudden both look very, very well built to be in the SEC going forward.
Oh yeah, I mean, just easily from a recruiting standpoint, and now the SEC is playing more of the same style that the Big 12 is playing. It just makes most sense. I'm looking at I'm looking at Alabama's schedule, and I'm starting to think that maybe A&M might not be out of the West Division race.
Yeah,
Alabama's hosting Arkansas, then they host Tennessee and LSU, so it's 3 straight home games. And then they go to Kentucky, and of course the gimme game against Chattanooga, and then they end the season with the Iron Bowl at Auburn.
That's always a tough game.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them losing another game down the stretch. This is not the strongest Alabama team in Nick Saban's era. This is probably on par with their 07 team, which is his first year, and they were 500, I believe, that season.
I just don't trust Tennessee, LSU, or Kentucky either, though.
Yeah, because I agree. There are teams that are like trying to contend. They're on the cusp, but they're missing something. Usually it's a depth thing. I could see Alabama still losing a game or two down the stretch. It's very possible. A&M's not out of the race, but they probably need to run the table, win out. I think not Petrino. I think Jimbo Fisher keeps his job if he just loses one more game down the stretch and gets like a big win, like against LSU.
Yeah, if he wins one of the ranked games left, I think he's okay as long as there's not a collapse. If you lose, like if you beat Tennessee, but then you lose to LSU, but it's a 35-31 game that's just a really fun game, kind of like Texas OU. I think his money keeps him safe for at least another year as long as there's not a full collapse. Now, all bets are off next year with Texas. If Texas beats A&M, any of that kind of stuff, then he's in trouble. But let's now turn our attention to the Longhorns, because honestly, of the 3 that lost this weekend, Aggies, Longhorns, and Cowboys, I think the Longhorns are the one that's still positioned best. And I will be surprised if they don't end up still in the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, I don't see the Longhorns losing another game to end the season. I really think that they're going to finish the season with only one loss, and they'll end up playing Oklahoma again in the Big 12 championship game. The difference between this year and last year was Oklahoma's defense has gotten much better, and Dylan Gabriel was healthy.
Well,
Last year,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was saying last year Texas shut out Oklahoma. I think it was the most lopsided loss in the Red River rivalry shootout history.
Yeah.
And this year is a different story. And it was still a close game. It was still mistake filled just because it's two really good teams playing against each other. But it ended up being decided by Dylan Gabriel tossing the end zone to end the game, but a few seconds left. So.
Well, first off, I want to point out again, like I said, Ivan Mazel said, if people are going to start the old joke, I guess Texas isn't back. They didn't watch the game. Texas, this reminds me so much of when Ellinger and Herman beat OU, and it was Kyler Murray's first ever loss in, competitive football. And then in the Big 12 championship game, OU beat Texas comfortably. It wasn't a blowout, but it was comfortably. You never felt OU was in danger. This feels a lot like that because Texas played the worst first quarter that you could play. Outside of the punt block, they just were not on. They were not playing well. Ewers, 2 turnovers in his first 10 attempts and all that. But from that point on, they basically had their way with a very good OU defense. Ewers ended up at one point after that start was like 20 of 24. He broke the UT record for most completions in a game, straight completions in a game. He finally looked like the true, I can go win it. Now, where the game got lost, though, was, and this, I'm not saying this is like, oh, you're a terrible coach, but Sark's decision-making to go for it on 4th and goal, after really just trying – and we'll bring this up again. This whole I'm going to do something to prove that my team is man enough to do it is stupid. Just if you're at a goal line offense, quit trying to be a power football team when you're not a power football team. But also, I will say this: that 4th down goal or 4th down play, that ball is a way closer than people realize to being a touchdown. I still contend. I think you could make the case that it probably did hit, because all you got to do is touch the goal line. The ball just has to barely be over the goal line. It's a touchdown. And Worthy stretches his hand out, and it's really, really close. But anyway, if you just kick the field goal there, you win the game. If you just kick the field goal there, you win the game.
Now, this was in reference to, I forgot what quarter it was. I guess it was the 4th quarter, or it went into the 4th quarter.
Yeah, going for 4. Or going.
The series before. I mean, I could see the emotional side of it because the series before, Oklahoma went for it on 4th and 1 or 2 from midfield roughly, and didn't get it. So it was kind of a momentum shifter because
very much was.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma was up by a touchdown at that point, kind of in control. Texas made the stop. Momentum, and in theory, has shifted, and Texas drove it all the way to the Oklahoma 2, 4th and goal. If I was in his shoes, I would kick a field goal.
Yeah, again, it's a wrong call. I don't think it's a bad call.
It's not a bad call.
Yeah,
the play call might not have been great.
I actually like the play call. Like I said, if you go look at it, he basically, I mean, it's really, really close. It is really, really close. In fact, if he didn't get in, a little bit of blame on Worthy because it's 4th down, so it doesn't matter if you fumble or not. You need to have that ball stretched out as soon as you caught it, because he was literally close enough that as he caught it, he probably could have. And I get it, you fumble, but it doesn't matter. If he fumbles, you fumble, you still lose the ball. I'm just saying, like I said, I don't think it's a bad call, but it turned out to be the wrong call because if you kick that field goal, I think Texas wins, and I think that the 4th quarter plays out where Texas wins. You're not having to worry about stopping OU on a minute 15.
I mean, the defense proved that they could stop Oklahoma's offense, so maybe that's what Sarkisian was worried about, the fact that the defense couldn't stop Oklahoma's offense, but they've already proved that they could. So
yeah, and
that's not yeah, part of me agrees with you about Xavier Worthy. He's 6'1". He could have probably stretched out and got the touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
But
again, I'm not blaming him like it's his fault. I'm just making the point. I don't have a problem with the play call. I would like to have seen that play call on 1st or 2nd down, maybe. I have issues with the first 3 play calls, just simply running 3 dive plays. Yeah, I get it. You want to be macho. You want to install your will, but you also need the points. Let's be smart. If you have to fake them, fine, fake them. I don't care. I just would like to have seen Ewers in a play action bootleg run pass option.
Oh, that's kind of a dicey move on 4th and goal from the one. That's almost borderline being too
No,
cute.
I'm talking about at any point in the drive. First down,
Oh,
second down,
okay.
third down, fourth down. And why would it be dicey on fourth down? Your guy, you're going to get them to bite. And I wouldn't have done it on fourth down either, because I think the only reason I get you saying dice, because they're thinking, okay, you've ran 3 times, now you're gonna pass the ball. But I just mean in any point of that 4 plays, do something besides just 3 straight dives.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think
Agreed.
it was 2 dives and a pitch out. Sorry, one second down was a pitch out, which was even a worse decision. Jonathan Brooks basically saved you because he got hit 3 yards behind the line, and he basically drug OU players to get it to at least back to the line of scrimmage. So the 3 play calls were big issues, and then the defense on the last drive. That defense, one of the issues that UT has that people don't really talk about is their pass rush. They get to the quarterback, but they don't. They remind me of the 09 Cowboys, where they get to the quarterback or they don't.
Yeah.
They don't live in the backfield. Like, for all the talk, and yeah, we can talk about last night, but I'm just talking about right now in this Dan Quinn era. Dallas, the sacks are great, but when Dallas's defense is feasting, they're just living in the backfield all game. And so Texas doesn't do that. And so I felt that they were very, very, very soft on their coverage in that last drive. I mean, I knew. And hang on. I'm sorry. I want to go back. The Sark decisions in that drive also affected UT on the final drive, when UT should have probably been more aggressive and ran off more time. That third down, going for it with a draw play. I get it. You were on the edge of field position, like fourth down, like you're either on the edge of being in field goal range, and you want to assure that. I get that. But at that point, I think it'd have been better off if you ended up just not scoring, and you run out the half and you go to overtime. So he was too conservative there. They should have ran off more time on that drive.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, Oklahoma drove 75 yards in 1 minute, and they won the game. But going back to that final drive, I wish coaches would just take a class on time management. It's always been a problem for me. And I don't think I've really mentioned it until the last 11, 12 years, just watching Jason Garrett coaching the
You and I
Cowboys.
have
And
the same thoughts a lot of times.
I don't get it. Like, I remember trying to think of a coach that did this. Oh, a recent coach, the Packers' current coach.
Skinny Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, so essentially skinny Mike McCarthy. I really like the way, especially when him and Rodgers were clicking and they were just on tune. They were so good at killing the clock in the second half. They would have these 8-10 minute drives in the third quarter that would basically just ice the game and take the will out of the other team. It's not like they were vastly superior. They just knew how to manage the clock better. And I don't get how these coaches they got the X's and O's right. They're a head coach for a reason. They're all really good coaches. It's just, for some reason, when they're in a head coach position, they just don't know how to manage the clock. It's just like one extra thing they're not thinking about. And these are not rookie coaches. These are experienced coaches. Sarkisian's been a head coach before.
Yeah.
He's been in the league. He's been in college football for over 30 years. Like, he knows what he's doing. But for some reason, clock management has just always been an issue. We should do a show on clock management and some of the gaffes some of these head coaches have done in the history of NFL and college football.
Yeah, now I will say I think he's usually better at. He doesn't have a lot of true clock management gaffes. Like you're like when Brandon Staley is saying, "L.A., we're always waiting. Okay, it's going to come. If the game's close, there's going to be a moment." And to give Sark credit, the call for go for it on fourth down early in the game probably kept Texas in the game when OU had the momentum and had the motivation and had the fire and everything. And speaking of, that's the reason why this game is different. OU came out fired up. OU looked faster, as we like to say. When they weren't faster, they were just more aggressive. Old Texas that isn't back loses that game by 2 touchdowns. Probably makes a comeback in the fourth quarter to make it look really close, but can never close the deal. New Texas was able to weather that and still respond and still have the lead with a minute left in the game. That's why this isn't it's Old Texas. This is just two really good teams. And again, OU, everything broke right for OU on a night or day where Texas made a lot of mistakes. That's why I still feel that Texas right now, if these two teams played again, I still like Texas to win the game. If they played 10 times, I think Texas wins 6 to 7 times.
Yeah, a rematch. This should be the rematch for the Big 12 title game, and I think it will be a de facto playoff game.
Oh, I think it will be too.
Almost a quarterfinal game.
Exactly 100%. And that's why I feel that of the three that we're talking about here at the beginning and the meat of the show, A&M, Dallas, Texas, all losing 3 tough games this week. I think Texas is the one that this actually might, if they handle it right, might be the best thing that happens to them going forward. And Lincoln Riley always talked about for that OU team, that's what made them better the rest of the year was because Texas popped them on the mouth. They had never been popped on the mouth, and they had to respond. I think Texas got that in this game. But that's about as positive as we can get because we're about to go into the dark, dark skies of San Francisco as last night the Dallas Cowboys got bent over, raw dogged, and made to enjoy all things that they weren't supposed to like. I don't know, man. All the jokes you and I, you do a show like this, you got to be extreme as far as even if we're doing it tongue in cheek sometimes because that's what people want to listen to. They don't want to listen to the everything's going to be okay mantra. I wasn't even mad last night, dude. I was lethargic to it. And it wasn't the NyQuil. Well, it could have been some of the NyQuil, but it wasn't. I knew this was coming all week for some reason. I just knew that this was, I don't think this is a good matchup, first off. And second off, I just don't think Dallas is as good right now as we think they are.
Cue in the Dennis Green.
Yeah, I told you that I was going to do all that and have that for jokes and have Butch Davis. We're going to find out today who are the contenders and who are the pretenders. But I'm that unmotivated right now.
Well, Dallas' second loss this season. It was against an NFC West opponent on the road, and it was a record-setting performance. In the Arizona loss, Josh Dobbs got his first win as an NFL quarterback in 7 years.
Yep.
Been in the league 7 years, never won. Decides to win against the Cowboys. Okay, cool. And then last night, George Kittle got a 3-touchdown game for the first time in his career. Okay, cool. Just record-setting performances against the Cowboys defense. I mean, everything was wrong with this game. Coaching was bad. Players played terrible. Dak reverted back to his form last season. I don't know the extent of his.
Okay, I want to cut you off right there just because I want to say this.
I got to pour my third drink.
Go ahead, brother. The two, I don't count the 2 last interceptions. That game was over. I don't care what he'd have done. It'd have been no different if he'd have thrown 2 cheap touchdowns and people trying to make it. Dak was not great last night, but Dak was not the issue in any way to me last night. There wasn't throws early in the game where I was like, God, why are you making that throw? Like, honestly, I'm going to go back to it's the offense, dude. It is the offense, the offense, the offense. I don't like the scheme. I don't like the concepts. They're mired in 1997 West Coast football, and they're not good for this era.
Well, I mean, Mike McCarthy has watched a lot of tape.
You love that. You have been.
Yeah, Mike McCarthy came in and pitched this to Jerry Jones, and for some reason, Jerry Jones bought it hook, line, sinker. I guess he was just living in the fact that Mike McCarthy won a Super Bowl in Arlington, and I don't know why.
So you don't like the Mike McCarthy hire at all?
I did not.
But I'm talking about like now, looking back now, because I think for the most part, as a head coach, after he got the first season he was trying too hard. And also, I know Dak got hurt, but even before Dak got hurt, look, that season was going to be a 8-8 season where we scored a lot of points, but we gave up a lot of points, even if Dak would have played healthy. He made a lot of really bad decisions. That fake punt against Washington back, and all that. But I think since 2021, Mike McCarthy as a head coach has been perfectly fine.
And it's the same thing I've been telling you. They've improved every year since he's been a head coach. 2020, just throw that year out the window. They were, I think, 6-10. But the next year, they won the division, hosted a playoff game. The last season, they won a playoff game. So technically, he has improved every year as a head coach.
Yeah.
I'll always crap on him for the bad losses, though.
Oh yeah.
For all the you and I just a few years ago, I think 2017, we were just hoping that the Cowboys could just have a blowout win so we could just enjoy our Sunday, not
Yeah.
have to sit on pins and needles hoping that they'll get a big break in the game. And for the most part, that they've been having blowouts since then. And this year, kind of reminds me of 2019, where they would have these blowout wins,
Yep.
but just look like they've never played football in their losses. And this is a great example. Uh, I, I was very hopeful going into this game. I thought it'd be a close loss. Like I think I told you 21-17,
21-17. Yeah. Yeah.
because I remember the divisional round. That was the only bad game Brock Purdy's ever had.
Yep.
He looked bad against the Cowboys. The Cowboys got to him, and you saw how mediocre he was. And this game, the Cowboys did not get to him. So whatever adjustments they made on the 49er part worked out because he was pretty clean. He was sacked once, 2-yard loss. That was it. He had 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, he played a perfect game. Uh, yeah, the rushing attack was there. Dallas kind of invested in the draft to address this issue, stopping the run, and it didn't seem to really do much of anything. I mean, McCaffrey didn't really have the best game.
Yeah, so that's one of those. Here's the thing, though, with the rush, they had 170, but a lot of that was, to me, after the game was truly decided.
I
But
agree.
the thing with the run game was, it felt like that when they needed yards with the run game, they always got them.
Yep.
And so I don't think the run game was as bad as say against the Cardinals, but you also didn't feel that in any way that San Francisco. I mean, the defense played well through most of the first, after the first drive through the second quarter to really the last drive. They felt they played pretty good. And they actually got a lot of better pressure on him. They didn't get a sacks, but like Jonathan Hankins knocked the ball down a couple times. There was that play where the one sack was very close to being a fumble play because Fowler got around and behind Brock Purdy. And so, again, if you make that play, that maybe changes things for a little while. But at the end of the day, I know Dak and I hate the offense and all, but this is on the defense. The defense is supposed to be the bell cow of this team now. And I don't mind that you're going to have bad games against good offenses, but you got knocked in the face last night and they never responded.
Yeah, I mean the points off turnover, I think it was 14, but that was more in the second half when the game was kind of out of reach anyway.
Yeah.
The 3 and outs for Dallas, that's not good. It was just terrible, dude. They couldn't run the ball. Their receivers couldn't get separation. My big issue last year was before CeeDee Lamb kind of blew up in the second half was none of the receivers could get separation. It's kind of the same issue the Patriots are having right now.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't really blame Mike Jones solely for their issues. But with the Cowboys, they have Brandon Cooks, they have CeeDee Lamb, they have enough speed, and they're still not getting separation. So it goes to the point where, well, who do you blame now? Is it coaching? Because
I don't like the offensive concept. I really, really don't. I said this off the air before we started. The West Coast is predicated on run after catch.
yeah,
And Lamb might be the only one that's truly a run after catch guy, and even he's not. Dallas has a bunch of wide receivers that run really solid routes, and then they catch the ball either over the top or they catch the ball and they might get 4 or 5 yards, but they're going to be tackled. But they need to be past the sticks on throwing. This offense with Mike McCarthy is throw it, you know, let the wide receivers clear out, throw it, check down. You saw some good things. Jake Ferguson looked really good last night.
he did.
You saw where once he catches the ball, some of the other, and I think Pollard actually looked decent enough for the stats. Don't really, he just never, the running game never got on track and never got going. But Pollard, other than the fumble, and that was just one of those plays, man, give Warner credit. He came up and by the way, give the defense credit there because they respond with a fumble in of itself. So, if we're going to, when we knock a unit, we've got to also, at that point, I felt, okay, Dallas fumbled the ball. Dallas gets it back. Maybe we're about to finally settle into a game. And what the Niners do so well is they never let the other team settle into their stuff. Dallas never felt like they got settled in last night to their core concepts, their core schemes, their core moves. Give all the credit to that to San Francisco and McCaffrey and that staff. But also, I'm going to go back to I like Mike McCarthy, the head coach, perfectly fine. I do not like this offense with him. This was a mistake to try to go conservative like this.
And you're playing against the wrong team to be doing that. The 49ers defense is just, I mean, they're fast.
Well, and that's the thing, dude. You said that right there, and you can literally say the same thing about the Eagles.
Yeah.
Why did we decide? And you've got to look around. And this is Mac Brown. And we talked about which team is closest, and all three of the programs: Aggies, Cowboys, and Texas. It's been forever. And Mac Brown made the biggest mistake in the world when after that loss to A&M or to Alabama in the national championship game, and he has maybe the greatest spread quarterback in Gilbert coming back in as a sophomore. Yeah. The team has built on the 07, 08, basically air raid. Texas, Colt McCoy basically ran an air raid offense with Texas. Quick passes to your slots over the top once the safeties came up. And Mac Brown completely decides, now we're going to be a power team. When he wasn't reading the room like, dude, you're not in the SEC in 2010. You're in the Big 12. You need to score 50 points a game. So I do the same to Mike. Noe, why did they look at who the top other two teams were in the NFL and decide, hey, you know how we're going to beat them? We're going to go conservative and we're going to run the ball. Because Philadelphia's defense, you can pass on them if you can stay upright. They're kind of like Dallas, honestly. And they're kind of like where defenses are in today's NFL. If you can block the pass rushers, you can move the ball on Philadelphia. Yeah. San Francisco's at a different level. Let's just give it to them. They have made they for all the talk about Dallas's defense, San Francisco might have one of the better defenses of the last 25 years.
Well, where's the flaw there? I mean, you look at Bosa. He got to Dak Prescott 4 times. Got a half sack.
Pollard for 2 losses too. So I mean, he's playing both the run game and the pass game very well.
They lost Jimmy Ward to the. Sorry.
You're good.
They lost, Jimmy Ward to the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
They replaced him with Tayshaun Gibson Sr. So they got him and All-Pro Talanoa Hufanga in safety. So nothing's going to get over them. And then you got one of the best man-to-man corners in Tre'Davious Ward, just locking down players. And then you got the best linebacker in football, Fred Warner, able to run step with Brandon Cooks.
And dude, that EW Greenshire or whatever, the other he looked just as good.
Dre Greenlaw.
Yeah, he looked just I was Hobbit names there. He looked just as good as Warner did last night.
Yeah, there is no flaw. And then they got Javon Hargrave to shore up the.
You're gonna hate this.
The tush push the Eagles might attempt on them in the future. There is no flaw in that defense.
You know what that defense looks like? 92, 93 Cowboys.
Yeah.
Fast, fly to the ball. They get pressure. They might not always get sacks, but they're going to get pressure.
Redirect the throw.
Redirect the throws. Now, the one thing that they do, and this is why I think about them in the 92, 93, the one thing that those old defenses did do was give up a few big plays because they were just so aggressive. And San Francisco, you can sometimes catch. And like the drive where Dallas scored, you saw when, again, and this is why you have to have, you go back, okay, there's hope. That wasn't a drive that San Francisco helped them with bad penalties Dallas drove the ball down the field. It's there. But I'll tell you, go back and watch those plays. That sure looked more like a Kellen Moore offense than a Mike McCarthy offense. They were moving the ball past the sticks, getting the receiver. Hell, look at the touchdown to Turpin. That was a 35-yard touchdown. Beautiful throw, beautiful route run. That was the first and maybe only time in that game where I felt, Dallas's coaches just outcoached San Francisco's coaches. That was a play that San Francisco was not expecting. I don't know, man. It's frustrating with Dallas because, like somebody said, I was reading this morning, Dallas, we always overrate everything, the good and the bad. But this game, I don't know. I'll get to the positives here in a second, but this didn't feel like this gets any better this year or maybe next year, or maybe you're just going to have to hope that you get a 95 season and you don't, maybe something happens where the Niners get through some injuries or they lose a couple of weird games and they end up, not the number 2 division, maybe the 3rd or the 4th or something like that, and they get Eagles in the second round. Because I do think Dallas is a matchup. It matches up better with the Eagles. I still think that those games are good. Good. Dallas can split those. I don't think they can sweep. I think Dallas can split those games. But I just don't know. San Francisco just looks unbeatable to Dallas right now.
Yeah, I mean, unless they suffer the same injury issues that's kind of derailed them the last couple of years, or at least the last 3 years, I don't see San Francisco losing another game. To be honest with you, I think their toughest game was against the Rams, and they ended up pulling away there. So there's no flaw in this team. I've loved the way this team plays since Shanahan has become the head coach. Uh, they just play well. Like, as much as I love Matt LaFleur and the Packers for their clock management skills, I really love the beautiful offense that Shanahan runs with the 49ers, especially when everybody's healthy.
Yeah.
It is a thing to watch.
Well, and there is a point of it doesn't matter what you scheme when they're on their game. Now, and to be fair, even without injuries, they can have 4 or 5 offensive games where they just don't put it all together. For whatever reason, this is a very well built offense. This is an offense built to win playoff games, but that also means that this is an offense that at times, if sometimes the moving parts aren't connected. But let's now look at Dallas for the rest of the way. Where I still feel Dallas is the 3rd best team in the NFC. I do think part of this is just simply the Niners, at least right now, are that much better. I think the Niners are better than the Eagles. I think the Niners were better than the Eagles last year.
Yeah.
I do think if you at least have Jimmy G or Brock Purdy, that's a different game. But for Dallas, I still think that they're the 3rd best team in the NFC.
More than the Lions and the Seahawks?
Yes. I still don't trust the Lions to defense when it really, really matters. And Seattle is one of the most – I mean, they're kind of like Dallas, I guess, in a way. They can look really, really good at times offensively, and then they can just look really, really bad at times. And I just don't trust the construct of San Francisco or Seattle's roster.
Well, the best thing about the loss against the 49ers was the fact that it was early and it's only 1 loss.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity to learn from your mistakes.
And I go back to now we're into the Cowboy fan. Let's feel better about this. In 95, San Francisco did this to Dallas on a different level. Like that one was more shocking. This one was more methodical. But they did it, and Dallas still won the Super Bowl. In 94, San Francisco got absolutely destroyed by Philadelphia, like week 2 of the season. Fact to the point where they benched Steve Young for the part of that game. Yep. I think it was like 41-7. All that, Dallas can easily, and Dallas under Mike McCarthy does tend to pick up well after the losses. I think I've read that outside of the 2020 season, they haven't lost back-to-back games, or they've only lost 1 back-to-back game in that time. So I think Dallas will be fine going forward. And I think, honestly, Dallas in this week, and we'll go ahead and preview this game, and then we'll finish up with some quick recaps of everything else in college and pro. I think this is the best opponent for Dallas in this game, because you're going to get a Charger team that can they just don't know how to win when they need to. And I think I can see Dallas getting to Herbert enough, getting a couple sacks, making a couple big plays, and all that fun stuff.
The one difference this year is their offensive coordinator, and I think that'll play a big factor in this game.
Yeah, I think it does, but I think the idea of he's seen the Cowboy defense, that's a little overrated, because usually what he sees is the Cowboys playing the scout defense of the opponent. And so I don't know how much him being in Dallas matters. As far as Kellen Moore, I think that also helps Dallas, because if there's not a guy who will abandon the run, even when it's working quicker than Kellen Moore, I don't know who it is.
Yeah, and he should have a healthy Austin Eckler back too. So it'll be interesting to see if he's back, how much the Chargers will be running the ball.
Again, I think you can easily see. I could easily see a first half where Dallas is down 14-3 at halftime. Eckler has 65 yards rushing. The Chargers have hit 125 yards rushing, and we're all talking about that and all. And then the Cowboys come back and win, 31-28, and then in the second half, the Chargers ran the ball 10 times.
Yeah, that would be a Kellen
You
Moore
know
thing
what's
to
good?
do.
That's gonna be my call. That's how the game plays out.
Okay.
Dallas win 31-28. They'll look like crap in the first half. We're gonna be doing the whole up. This is it. Maybe Mike McCarthy doesn't make the season, blah, blah, blah. Second half will come out. I'm even going down to on the first drive, the Chargers will try to nail in the coffin, play action pass, go deep. Parsons will hit Herbert, fumble. Dallas goes on to that point and wins, and we all feel better about ourselves, and we're all laughing at Kellen Moore next week.
Next Monday will be special because we'll be doing a live show.
Yes, we will, and we might
Live from the studio.
well, we might do a live we might do a live watch.
Okay, we can
We,
do
we,
that.
we've talked about doing that. We did the live draft. We had a lot of fun doing that, and so we might do a live watch of the game. I'm debating that as we speak right now because you're going to be over here very early, and we're going to be very, very drunk. And I don't want you going Mel Gibson on this and start saying things about ethnicities and stuff because you're such a you're so racist about life. But no, I think we're going to. I think that I was going to bring that up actually before we started recording, and I forgot to. So hey, programming on the fly. But I think we're going to. But I think it's going to be a fun game, and I love the Chargers Cowboys. They're those teams across the way that you just always kind of looked at. I do hope they don't do what they did a few years ago when they freaking. You remember when the Chargers wore their blues and the Cowboys wore their blues, and it just.
I think was it 2020?
I think it was 2020. It wasn't the very last time they played. But yeah, it was ugly. Like, and I like it. Like Dallas and Washington did that a couple times. They really need to go back to doing that. You could do it with Dallas and the 49ers. I think that would look gorgeous to see Dallas's blue and San Francisco's red on the field. But Dallas blue and Charger powder blue, that just looked really stupid on the field at the same time. But anyway, all right, we've talked an hour of the Cowboys, the Aggies, and the Longhorns. Now let's go to the rest of the college and NFL world. We'll, of course, do this way, way quicker. I do want to bring up, outside of anything else, Miami Hurricane, the U pulled off one of the most epic losses you're ever going to lose. Why don't you talk about what you saw in that one there, buddy?
Yeah, so Miami had a chance to kneel the ball and end this game against Georgia Tech. They were playing at home.
Good win if they win that game.
Yeah, if they just kneel it, they win. Game's over. They remain undefeated. Undefeated teams are falling left and right. Utah fell recently, and so they decided to not do that. And let me look at the exact happenings here, but this is where we're going to reference Haynes King. But yeah, so blah 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 blah. So anyway, they ran the ball, got fumbled. Georgia Tech got the ball with under a minute left. I think it was 24 seconds or 20 under 30 seconds left.
Yeah.
And they proceeded to march the ball 74 yards down the field. And it was a game-winning pass from former Aggie quarterback Haynes King to Christian Leary, a 44-yard touchdown pass with 2 seconds left.
Yep.
So Miami went from kneeling the ball and winning the game to losing the game at home. And kudos to Mario Cristobal, Miami's head coach. He acknowledged that, I made a mistake. I should have kneeled the ball.
Yeah, I do appreciate that, but so Kevin, and it's so funny because we literally referenced this a couple weeks ago in the show. It might even have been as soon as last week.
Yeah.
Where Kevin Steele in 2000 against UNLV, he decided he wanted to prove that this was a different Baylor era, and they were macho and men, and they eat meat. And when they had a chance at the goal line just to kneel and win the game, they tried to score. Fumbles, UNLV scoops and scores 98 yards with no time left on the clock to win the game. This, I think, was different. I think this was just simply a mismanagement of time. I don't think that they realized that, dude, we can just kneel now. We're good to go.
Back to what we said before.
Yeah, time management. And it's not just on the coach. That's something that, to me, should be on the staff because even in college now, you have a guy that literally just watches every replay to make sure, hey, that's in. We need to, that's a touchdown. We need to challenge it. You have that in pro and you have that in college. You need to have, and I think every staff has a guy also that's literally, okay, I'm the guy that all I worry about is time. I don't worry about plays. I don't worry about schemes. I don't worry about injuries. All I do is I know I have a chart that has all the scenarios out that I need to do. And if you're a coach that doesn't have that, get one.
Yeah.
Have somebody take that. Coaches today have so much to do. I'm a big believer in the Jimmy Johnson head coaching philosophy of let everybody else do their job. You make the big decisions, but you have as much information when you make the big decisions. It's not just making the big decision. It's having your clock guy saying, okay, you've got 3 minutes, 3 timeouts. Here's what we need to do. You've got your offense coordinator saying, here are the plays that I know will work. And you trust all of them. And then you go from there. That's how you should coach a program or a NFL team nowadays.
Some of the best decisions or some of the best lessons are learned and lost. So hopefully Mario Cristobal learns from this and moves forward. Miami has the funds, so they can definitely afford someone like that to manage the clock. But yeah, this is a tough break for Miami because this is a wide open ACC, and it's just one of those things where it should not have happened, and it's just gut wrenching because that is a good Miami team, regardless.
Yeah. And I think they're going to still be good the rest of the way. I think that they're going to. I think they're going to win some games, and I think that they're still a really good matchup. I mean, hell, they might win this week against North Carolina. And let's talk about North Carolina.
Great story.
North Carolina. Well, yeah, that. But I'm just talking about just the program in general. It was kind of seen when Matt Brown went back to UNC that was going to be kind of let's let him coach a few years, get us a couple bowl games, kind of right the ship after, oddly enough, the Butch Davis era and a couple, there was the other one guy before him. They just kind of had some issues with NCAA sanctions and just it was the program felt dirty. Not that it was a dirty program, but there was just a lot of dirt around the program. And so you bring in Matt Brown, he'll get you positive polys. They'll win 8. You'll go to the Poulan Weed Eater Bowl. You'll feel good about yourself. Well, holy shit. They're right now. They control their own destiny. If they win out, and there's a really good chance they will, they win out, and UNC's making a case for being in the playoffs.
Yeah, they have, to me, the best quarterback in college football. I know a lot of people talk about Caleb Williams at USC, but to me, the best is Drake May. I think he'll probably be one of the top draft picks next year in the draft.
I mean, I'm hearing that Caleb Williams, by all accounts, is supposed to be generational. I feel like that's getting used way too much now, though. Like, I like Caleb Williams.
Every year, a quarterback is generational.
I like Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams is going to be perfectly great at the NFL level. I think he will be a superstar. But isn't this what we heard about Trevor Lawrence? Like, he's the next great. He's going to change everything. Tua, and you can say, well, look at what Tua's doing. Yeah, dude, give any quarterback in the NFL that, and I'm not knocking Tua, but I'm just saying, give Dak Prescott that offense. And boy, Dak Prescott's, we're talking just like about Tua, that he's probably an MVP candidate because that offense, and that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. McDaniels has built the offense around what Tua does best, and it works. I just think the Caleb Williams, he's the next great. Oh my God, we'll never see anyone like him again. It's getting a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
And go back to the Colorado, the North Carolina thing. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Tez Walker, the wide receiver, he got his eligibility reinstated by the NCAA. That was to me a great story. He was initially denied. So the NCAA, going to backtrack a little bit, the NCAA is trying to crack down on people who transfer twice from being immediately eligible to play. And there were this is Tez Walker's second transfer, and he was initially denied just because the NCAA is trying to crack down, but he actually had a really good reason. He was wanting to get closer to his grandmother. And so he used the mental health as a reason because he was literally depressed that he wanted his grandmother to see him play live.
Sick and not doing well and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
So a lot of thanks to a lot of people who heard the story, they started pressuring the NCAA to do the right thing, and eventually they did. And it was just kind of nice to see him play, and his grandmother was able to be in attendance and watch him play on Saturday. So it's just a good overall story. I'm really happy for Mac Brown. He came close a little bit in the mid to late 90s.
Yeah, couldn't beat Florida State.
UNC. Yeah, I mean, they just lost 1 or 2 games that they lost to Florida State in games where that would decide if they would go to play for a championship or just go for a semi-major bowl game. And it's not like they were a bad team. It's just they didn't have the depth that Florida State had in the
Yeah.
90s. So
Yeah, they're just, just like OU and Texas. We can talk about, Mac Brown, blah, blah. Texas back then were really talented, but OU was just a better team at the time, period. I mean, that's how it works. But anyway, so he's back. And again, by the way, NCAA, when you're in an era where you're dying, that's not the way to keep alive, is by being the Scrooge on things like that. You could get away with that back when people thought that the NCAA was the only way to do college football. Now that people realize, no, this is dumb, you got to pick your battles better. And I know that they blame, it got really ugly. Like, this is not a normal transfer denial. UNC said a bunch of things, and the NCAA basically said, oh, well, we're allowing him to be because UNC finally gave us information that they'd been withholding, which that doesn't make any sense to me. But it got really oddly ugly between the school and the NCAA.
yeah, it really did, man. I'm glad the good guys prevailed in this case. I'm really curious to see what happens with North Carolina going forward. They have a really legitimate shot at competing for a championship this season, but some things are going to have to break for them for that to happen.
I think that they can get into the playoffs. I don't think they're built well past that point. I mean, because as great as their 12-0, their 5-0 is, they barely beat Appalachian State, they barely beat Pitt, they struggled against South Carolina early. Now, I was impressed with how good they beat Syracuse. That felt like that could have been a really big trap game with the Miami game and all. And they come out and I think they scored 27 straight and never gave them a chance. I hate that. But they never gave them a chance. And that's what good teams do. You can't let the trap game stay in the game, because the longer you let them stay in the game, the bigger a trap they are.
I mean, outside of these games, there's really not much that happened in college football. I mean, there was like Kentucky didn't prove it against Georgia.
Yeah.
Georgia figured it out on offense. USC, they've proven that they needed a 3 overtime home win against Arizona.
Yeah. We talked about it last week. They can outscore anybody, but they can't stop anybody. So if they're going to play the averages, they might win out. And I said last week, I do think people are calling their death knell a little quick. Oh, they can't play. I think this offense is good enough. It could basically outscore everybody, but we'll see.
Now, I know Louisville beat Notre Dame, and that was big for the program, big for Jeff Brom. But I'm curious to see what USC does when they go to South Bend next week to play Notre Dame. That'll be the matchup I'll be looking at.
Yeah, I totally agree. We'll see then, kind of give us the story on USC, Notre Dame, and Louisville. UCLA with a good win over Washington State. Washington State turned the ball over a ton. It's interesting to see UCLA win with more defense. We think of Chip Kelly and we think of offense scheme, all that weird stuff. But UCLA, and they're that team that I keep thinking I could see them beating UCLA or USC and not even needing to outscore them. I think UCLA is a matchup nightmare for USC. You also had, LSU, man, they were down early. You see this every year, though, in the SEC and the Big 12, that 11 a.m. game, the upstart team will jump out 3 touchdowns, and you just know, it'll at least be a close game by the end of the road. Hell, LSU didn't even make it close by the end of the road. They ended up kind of going away. It was only by 10, but by the end of the game, you could see that they were just that much better. But really good bounce back win for LSU.
Agreed, 100%. Looking at the rest of the college football, Wyoming, their only loss was to the Longhorns, and they responded by beating Fresno State. They snapped Fresno State's second longest winning streak in college football at 14 games. They won 24-19. And then Colorado, might as well talk about them this year because everybody wants to talk about them. They had a close win against Arizona State. Not the most impressive from either team, but Colorado found a way to get their first Pac-12
and that's
win.
huge. This is a team on an 8-game losing streak. Everything that, and that's the thing people don't understand. They want to knock Dion. Everything Colorado's doing, it's the hardest to do. It's hard to erase a 1-9 program. It's hard to erase an 8-game losing streak in conference. That means that you're going to struggle against teams you shouldn't struggle with early, and that's what happened. And give them credit for answering back against Arizona State in that second half.
Yeah. That's more of a mental win, if anything. The other 4-2. They won 3 more games this year than they did last year. This is already a successful season. I'm hoping they get bowl eligible. I think they're good enough for that. Of course, next season they're going to have to figure out a running game, figure out offensive line, figure out a defense. But for this year, I think they've exceeded expectations, in my
No,
opinion.
I totally agree with you there. All right, let's now go talk a little pro football. Let's do what I normally do at the beginning. Bear.
Oh, one more
Oh,
thing I
go
want to
ahead. Go ahead.
say. For me, the game of the week next week is Oregon at
Oh yeah.
Washington. I think two undefeated teams, it could decide college football playoff positioning. So I'm looking forward to that
No,
game.
I agree. I think it's going to be a really good game. So let's now go to the NFL and let's talk. We'll do it like we start at the beginning. Bears beat Washington. First off, we can make all the talk about Washington and how good or bad they really are, but I think people need to go and remember how the Bears played against the Broncos, and the Bears are starting to figure things out against bad teams. But I mean, they haven't been beating bad teams, so this is a start. I kind of feel like we might be seeing how the Lions started last year and then they ended. Kind of feels like maybe that happens to the Bears. Maybe not at that success to where the Lions are playing for a playoff spot last year in the last week if certain things were to a break, right? Or if they wouldn't have lost to the Jets in that ugly game. But the Bears just are starting to look like a functioning offense.
Yeah, they're running the ball, and Fields is running the ball too. That was kind of what led to some of their offensive success last year. Fields got about 57 yards rushing. Herbert got 76 yards before he got hurt. But hey, the big story though, I mean, just like with the Bengals and Cardinals, wide receiver DJ Moore, 8 catches, 230 yards, 3 touchdowns. Fields found his guy. You know, I think that'll be a connection even against Washington. Hey, they minimize the defensive line for Washington, which is pretty hard to do. I mean, Chase had a or not Chase, Chase Young actually, yeah. Chase Young had a really good
So
game,
did
but
Sweat.
so did Sweat. But for the most part, Chicago did well against that line. They gave Fields enough time to throw the ball around, and it was just a good mix. This is how Chicago was supposed to look to a lot of people going into this season. Were able to throw the ball because of Moore, able to run the ball because they got Roshan
Yep.
Johnson and Khalil Herbert and Foreman. Now Roshan and Herbert and Foreman are all hurt, but you know it's one of those things where this is a sign in the right direction. Now that Fields has seen what it looks like to be successful, hopefully that'll build upon his progress as an elite quarterback in the NFL.
Does Rivera make the season? I'm starting to think he doesn't.
It depends on the next 4 weeks go. I think if they can figure it out and get a couple wins, I think his job will be safe.
Yeah, you
Maybe
got the Falcons, the Giants, the Eagles, the Patriots, the Heat, Seahawks. Yeah, I agree. You should be able to go
that's
4-2 in that stretch.
yeah, and that'll probably save his job for a little bit,
I don't think they do
especially.
though. I don't think they do go 4 and stretch. You could go 4 and stretch. I think the Falcons beat them this week. I think
Falcons have a really good
yeah, they
defense.
just and hey, look, this is how we'll kind of draft into the other games. We'll kind of do what we do. We just bounce around. Desmond Ritter, I've been very hard on. I don't know if he's a true NFL quarterback. He had a hell of a game yesterday, throwing for 300 yards, making some big throws in that third quarter and that fourth quarter. Bijan Robinson early had a fumble. He was kind of taken out of the game, and yet Ritter was able to step up. That's a big development right there. That's a huge step for him.
He agreed. This was his best game, and he, like you said, arrived toward the end. And the biggest thing for me, I think, for any young quarterback, their safety blanket is a tight end. I think he finally figured that out.
Yep.
Pitts had 80 yards on 7 catches. He needs to start doing that. I mean, he has Drake London. He has another good tight end, Johnny Smith.
And Kyle Pitts, let's remember this. This is one of those crazy things. Kyle Pitts is only 22 years old.
Young buck.
This idea that, in fact, I easily, if he doesn't last with Atlanta, I think he's got 1 year left, and then his rookie deal. Well, no, they can 5 years.
He just turned 23.
Yeah, oh yeah, he just
on
turned
Friday. On Friday,
yeah,
he turned 23.
exactly. And I forgot he's a first round pick, so they can 5 year option him, so he's there for 2 more years. I could easily see him either finally exploding with Atlanta or going somewhere else, Evan Ingram, going somewhere else, and you start to see, oh, this is what we can do. It's just not fitting in the system. He made a couple big catches yesterday. This was a I know it's weird because they beat, the Texans, but this was a very good, solid win all throughout. And honestly, for Texans, you can everything is still there for them. You can see the foundation that Ryan's is building there.
Oh yeah, this is a team that won 2 in a row. They're going into Atlanta, who hasn't lost at home this season. against a very good Atlanta defense. They invested a lot of money to get that defense
You're
going.
starting to see it come together, man. When there's some drives that they look scary fast, and that was the kind of the thing with Atlanta's defense the last few years was. I can remember when Dallas played them a couple years ago, and it was real ugly for most of the game. But whenever Dallas needed to play, they just stretched the top of that defense, and they couldn't respond. Atlanta can respond now. That secondary is pretty quick.
Yeah, you got Jesse Bates, the third back there. It's going to be pretty hard to throw downfield against Atlanta. Uh, Houston, if they have Derek Stingley back there, they're almost healthy at secondary. And
Yeah,
if they get him back, I think they'll be fully healthy. They might have won this game with a healthy Stingley at the very end, but it is what it is. This is good. The Houston's 2-3. Their offense looks good. They're finally starting to use Schultz more. They got enough talent on that team, and you're
yeah.
starting to see it now. Stroud seems to be legit. He seems to be unflappable. Like he seems to be able to do well under pressure. I'm really excited about Houston. This is the most excited I've been about Houston in about 5 years.
Houston just needs to figure out the run game. Dalton Schultz had another big game. Stroud and what would be called his worst effort as a pro still was 20 of 35 for a touchdown, no interceptions. He broke Dak's record, and that just goes to show you, hey, all you Houston fans, just because you break an interception rookie record doesn't mean anything. But no, I like Stroud. I think the Texans are held it in the right place. Let's keep in the South though in the AFC because Indianapolis just announced themselves, and so did Jacksonville, but Indianapolis just announced themselves as a true division threat as they beat Tennessee in an ugly game. Like yesterday was pretty ugly. There was just a lot of ugly games. Zach Moss, after Jonathan Taylor Thomas gets his 3-year deal, Zach Moss has 100. I love saying that. Zach Moss has 195 yards, 2 touchdowns. He looks great, and this will make Taylor better. Jonathan Taylor, by the way, if y'all really think it's Jonathan Taylor Thomas, it'll make Taylor better. It'll make this offense better. And let's be honest, the Colts' smartest move was getting Gardner Minshew with Anthony Richardson at quarterback. I am starting to worry about Richardson. He has been hurt every game he's played, and he has been hurt in different ways in every game he's played. They're saying now he'll probably be out up to 6 weeks.
Yeah, I think initial reports I saw was a month, but yeah, 6 weeks would be pretty bad. Hey, but they got a really good backup quarterback in Minshew. They got two, yeah. And this is kind of a good weekend for running backs. I mean, it started with Taylor getting the 3-year contract, over $40 million. And then all the running backs had a great day yesterday. Devin Achane had a great day. Zach Moss in this game, he had almost 200 combined yards. It was he outshone Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor combined.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just the Colts are here, and they have the depth and they have the defense to be able to compete with anybody. And the most important part of all of this is that their offensive line is actually reverting back to where they were in 2018 when they were one of the best in the NFL.
All right, so let's just go ahead and finish off with Jacksonville and Buffalo in the AFC South talk. Look, good win by Jacksonville. Win. Also, if you're a Cowboy fan and you want to do the whole, you need to remember this is a week-to-week league now. Look where Miami and Buffalo they're past the last 4 weeks and how each have looked amazing, looked bad, looked amazing, and all that. So again, for Cowboy fans, it's okay. In this one, though, I have a huge issue with how this game's scheduled out. Look, if you want to do the London stuff, that's fine. I like it. It's fun to get up at 8:30 in the morning, and you and I joke we're already up anyway, and we're always like, man, I'm really ready to go. The only thing is it cuts into my league watching because that's when I watch the league. Is literally that I'm on season 2 right now. It's, I watch for the first couple hours right before the game start. But if you're gonna do that, no team should be able to be in London back-to-back weeks, and then the team they play have to come off a game and then go in. Give them the bye week or something. I do think that was pretty shitty scheduling.
I think it was fine. You knew what the schedule was going into the season. You had ample time to prepare. I don't give that as an excuse for the Bills.
I don't think it's an excuse, but I think there's something to be said why they were so lethargic. Now, you can blame the Bills. I don't understand coming in on Friday. Jet lag's a real thing, folks. This isn't just a guy being lazy. Your body, no matter how much you fly, when you're talking flying 16 hours and being in a different time zone, your body has to adjust. And so I'm not saying it's 100% on the NFL, but the NFL could help there. Again, this goes back to helping your players succeed. You can set this up where all this happens the same way. Hey, Jacksonville gets 2 weeks. Just give the team they're playing the second week a bye. Just simply as that. Just give them a bye or have them play the Thursday night before. And then they basically get a mini bye. And then that way they can adjust. They can fly over on Sunday if they want, spend the whole week, do the whole thing. Again, I don't think it caused a loss. I just think the NFL sometimes they just do better.
Or Buffalo could have flown out on Wednesday.
Oh, I agree. No, I agree. I'm not saying it's, again, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying the easiest problem would have been, hey, let's not have Jacksonville have the ability to stay over for 2 weeks, and then Buffalo has to play. Because even then, even Buffalo coming over, that's still just that's a big advantage for Jacksonville. Period. That's a big advantage to be over there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, and they did a smart thing and stayed out there. The theme this weekend was running backs just blowing up. Travis Etienne had a great game, especially in the second half against Buffalo.
Exactly. I was going to say, not only did he have a big game, but he had a big game when it mattered in the second half. When Buffalo was starting to kind of get better and you could kind of see them finding their feet and all offensively. And Buffalo's defense, once again, another year, it looks like they're just going to be completely ravaged with injuries all year. And they got hurt even 3 times more in that game. Wow. They're just struck right now with a curse of injuries. But, at the end, just whenever they needed 6 yards, he got 8. Whenever they needed 8 yards, he got 11. And that run game looks so good. Those offensive linemen popping out on those little pitch outs to him, and he's not getting touched till he's in the second level. Oh, magnifique. I love, you know me. I always send you run blocking stuff that I find on Twitter and stuff.
I love it.
I know you love to. And dude, they were setting that edge and sealing the edge all at once, which is, if people don't know, that's the old Lombardi. We're going to seal it here and seal it here. That's called, now you call the inside setting the edge, the outside you're sealing it. And Jacksonville was against even still good Buffalo defenders, just doing it so well. I'm telling you, dude, Jacksonville is more impressive right now than they were last year, and they have not been putting up a lot of the same stats as they were last year. They just look like more of a complete team when they play good. Their problem is still being consistently a complete team.
Yeah, but again, only 5 games into the season. There's a lot of football left to be played. So I like to see how Jacksonville is by November. Last year they were peaking toward the second half of the season. So
yeah, and it felt like, and I even said it in the preview, it felt like some of their stuff was magic, and those are fun, and man, you love those, but those don't tend to carry over as far as playing that same way. This year, they're starting to be a little bit more consistent. They're starting to, to when things are going good, they're going good offensively and through the run game and pass. I don't know. It just looks different to me. That's all I'm gonna say. It just looks different.
And they were one of the best uniform games of the week.
Oh, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Of course, Dallas, San Francisco was beautiful. Kansas City, Minnesota, very pretty. Rams, and you know what? It worked in the sun.
It looked more like the old school LA Rams in the 80s, 90s, and before.
I think you had said it before. That it looks okay in a stadium that's not basically, I mean, the where they play now is SoFi is basically a dome stadium, and the lights always make it look like a night game in there, and so it doesn't quite. But out in the Philadelphia sun on the noon game, or that was 3:00 game. 3:00. Either way, it looked good. I like that one. All right, the other ones: New York, Denver. Dude, it would have been the perfect one if the Jets would have wore the white face mask.
Yep.
I like the all orange Denver look because it harkens to the old style, and I still like the old logo and all that better. And I thought
the end zone color option too.
And the Broncos have been playing around with the end zones for the last couple of years. Them and the Chiefs, they'll go multiple end zones. I wish that's one of those things I wish Dallas would do more with all the helmets they have and things like that. Let's see here. Jacksonville, Buffalo. Yeah, it was fine. Tennessee, Indianapolis. I don't like the Tennessee redo. I don't like the helmet. I wish they would at least bring back the white helmet as the option, but that looked good yesterday. And it looked good because everybody was wearing the baby blue sock sleeves. And that, to me, made that look really, really good.
Yeah.
And then let's go ahead.
No, I was saying 100% agree. Did you talk about the Giants in Miami?
Yeah, so that was the one that kind of, and you and I have talked about this. I do not like the Miami look now, but when they wear all white, it does look okay. It kind of kills the day glow look and all that. And the Giants, The Giants are kind of like the Rams, except for the Giants uniform's never been ugly. It gets kind of stale. But for some reason, when you put the Giants in a day game on a grass field in the middle of the day, that blue and gray just looked really good. And it actually worked really well with that Miami. Now, in saying that, I still would have loved to have seen the all-white Miami of the 80s and all that. But that looked really, really good.
Yeah.
All right, who are the bad ones?
To me, I would say the Thursday night game, Chicago, Washington. I just didn't like the all black of Washington.
Washington has an underrated look, but that's the bad one. They need to get rid of that one.
Yeah. And then Houston, Atlanta. I like the team's color options some weeks, but I love it when Atlanta does the red helmet with the black uniforms, but their uniforms then it just didn't look good to me. It clashed with Houston. It just looked like two of the same teams playing against each other.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I like Atlanta. I think Atlanta's one of the few teams that every change has always been perfect for that era.
Yeah.
I like the change they do now. I think for the most part, they all look good and they throw in the retro. I also think with Houston, we all know a change is coming. And so we're ready to see the change. We're ready to see the change.
I'll go through the rest of these other games just real quick because I want to talk about the Jets and Broncos. New Orleans, they shut out the Patriots in New England, 34-0. Kind of a whole game. Kamara became the all-time Saints touchdown leader.
Yep.
Mac Jones is benched again, so I have no idea what the quarterback situation is going to be with the Patriots. We already talked about Miami, the Giants. It was just 31-16 Miami. Devin Achane had 165 combined yards, 76-yard touchdown run.
Right. I want to say this.
Okay.
Tua threw 2 interceptions. One of them was a pick six that if the Giants had any offensive teeth could have changed. This is where I talk about Tua. He kind of reminds me of Dak when Dak was going good in 2022 and 2021 and, offense can't be stopped, but what's going to happen when you throw that pick six in a game that matters? I still think there's questions about that with Tua.
Yeah, playing against a team with a better quarterback, that could have been a momentum changer. I think the Dolphins were up 14-3 when that 102-yard pick six occurred. So, yeah. I hope Daniel Jones is okay. He had a neck injury. He left the game. I have no idea what the extent of the injury is.
Yeah, I haven't heard.
Detroit, 42, Carolina, 24. I think at this point, Jared Goff, 4 touchdowns. Sam Laporta, the rookie tight end, had 2 touchdowns. To me, the big thing about this is when do they make a change at quarterback for Carolina? Because Andy Dalton plays much better in the short term right now for Carolina than Bryce Young does.
Why would you make a change?
Because they don't look good right now. I think Bryce Young just needs some more time.
Well, I don't get. I think the Bryce Young thing's been kind of vastly overrated as far as what he can and can't do. On the year so far, he's thrown for 5 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. I'm sorry, 3 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. No, 5 touchdowns. I'm right. He was perfectly fine in the game, 247 yards, 61%. But more importantly, if you're Carolina, this is a bonus year. Let him learn. Go 0 whatever. Get the first or second or third round pick, and you instantly make you I know we all talked about last year. They almost made the playoffs, and I still think the roster is pretty good. They need a true wide receiver threat, which is kind of funny since they traded DJ Moore. That's all. Is one of those.
They got Mingo now in the draft, so but they do need more. I agree. They need better running back help too, because Miles Sanders, he hasn't been playing that great this season.
Well, and again, the biggest issue with Miles is he's basically been beat up. And that's, that was the question when people were like, well, what are you going to do? But I mean, to me, the biggest issue right now is their defense has got to be rebuilt. And if they can figure that out, I think this is a bonus season for them. Hey, be a first round pick, or even it's still the South. And I know Baker Mayfield it's been a good story, but Baker Mayfield will eventually do Baker Mayfield things. I think even at 0-5, I think they're fine. Let them either tank with him or he figures it out. I think if you play Andy Dalton, you win enough just to muck up your draft pick. How many times when we talk about that the 3 years of 5-11 for Dallas, if they would have just in 2 of those years only won 3 games, how that could have changed the franchise, because that 5-11 was getting them just right in the middle of a first round where you were kind of going, okay, might get an impact player, you might just get an okay player. And so I think if you're Carolina, you sink and swim with what's going on and not worry about wins.
I guess you make some good points.
Oh,
Pittsburgh, Baltimore. I think Baltimore just gave this game away.
that's what my cat was doing all day yesterday watching that game. That game was ugly, man.
It was ugly, but Baltimore was in control. They just
Oh yeah,
they turned it over 3 times. They had the block punt safety, and they just let anytime they've won, anytime the Steelers have won, Kenny Pickett's had one really good drive.
yeah.
And this one, it was toward the end where he got a couple of connections to George Pickens, including the touchdown to win the game. Baltimore's going to London next week to play the Titans. I mean, this is kind of a sour taste in their mouth.
Exactly. And that could be a good thing going over to London and getting away from the actual NFL press and all that. Because Lamar Jackson, look, I like Lamar Jackson. And I think you and I, we've talked about this. I don't buy into that whole quarterback's built to win a title or not. I think that's just stupid stuff that writers create. I think he can perfectly win, but he just doesn't look right this year. He has just not looked right.
Yeah, in the wins, he's looked okay, but like in these losses, I don't know what's going on. They just don't. They're not. They got Georgia's offensive coordinator Todd Monken to be their offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And there's times where I think this is a great hire. Lamar Jackson's built up his body. He's bigger. He can take some of these hits now. Yeah. And they're running the ball. They got weapons. Flowers looking like a legit talent.
Yeah, I was paying attention to him yesterday because I kind of started. So what I do is I have my, I have the red zone on, and then I'll pick a game to kind of concentrate on the laptop. And for a while, I put it on that game. Maybe that's why I was sick all day.
Yeah.
Zay Flowers is starting to figure things out. You can tell with his route running and things like that. Now, I want to say this about Lamar before we go on. The Ravens receivers dropped 5 or 6 key passes yesterday. That they looked terrible on that. Rashad Bateman dropped a touchdown. Flowers had a couple of drops. So I'm not going to put it all on Lamar Jackson.
Oh, for sure. It was a team effort.
Yeah.
Of choking.
Yeah.
They just messed up so much. Like Pittsburgh's 3-2, but it's a very shaky 3-2. They did not look good at all. They're finding ways to win. This is a Mike Tomlin staple. They do it ugly. The Ravens had a chance to sweep the AFC North on the road this season, but they crapped the bed, and they're gonna have to go to London with that thought. And I feel sorry for the Titans because I think the Ravens are gonna take it out on them pretty well this weekend.
Yeah, but it was just the most Raven thing that they beat a really good defense in Cleveland and beat them with an effort that it wasn't close. It wasn't like it was 7-3. I think it was 28-3, and then to turn around and do this. And let's hey man, you brought it up, Kenny Pickett. That I'm not big on him as far as a long-term starter. And you brought up the drive thing. Is that not Quincy Carter the year that Bill Parcells got them Dallas to the playoffs? Quincy Carter had 2 good drives a game. That's all you needed. And Pittsburgh's defense is good enough, and we can joke about Tomlin and how good he is as a coach, but dude, if you had the Steelers 3-2 with wins over the Browns and the Ravens as at the beginning of the year, you're crazy. Now, in saying that, they turn around last week and just absolutely get throttled by the Texans 30-6. That's why, again, go back to the Cowboys. That's why what happened now matters, but doesn't matter in 10, 11 weeks when the season starts coming to the playoffs. We are officially, and have been for a while, but truly officially in a week-by-week league in the NFL.
And also division rival, Cincinnati, they kind of wrote the wrongs on offense. It was like Joe Burrow's not ankle, but his calf felt fine. He was running around a little bit. Yeah. Making some acrobatic throws. But Jamar Chase, big story of the day. He had 192 yards and 3 touchdowns, his first touchdowns of the season. And Bengals don't look listless. They were out without T. Higgins, but they showed up and they got a big road win at Arizona, 34-20.
Yeah, it's amazing how when you start throwing back to Jamar Chase more, how amazing the offense will look. And sometimes, T. Higgins is great. T. Higgins would be a 1 receiver on a lot of teams. So sometimes you need a T. Higgins to be out for a game. and to let Burrow and Jamar Chase have to basically be the only thing in your passing game and remind you how good Jamar Chase is.
And Arizona was pretty good on offense too. It's just you
Yeah.
could see that they need some help, and I think they're doing the best with what they got. But yeah, they're definitely not there yet.
Hey, I know you want to talk about it, so bring up the Broncos and Jets game.
Okay, I was about to do it. Yeah, the Nathaniel Hackett revenge game.
Yep.
Essentially, so Nathaniel Hackett was the head coach for the Broncos last season. He got fired before the season ended. Now he's offensive coordinator for the Jets. They come into Denver. Denver looks beautiful. Jets look beautiful in their uniforms. Brees Hall, back-to-back years, 60-plus yard touchdown runs against Denver. Last year was a 62-yarder. This year was a 76 or 72-yard. Oh, 70, yeah, 70-plus yard touchdown. And Zach Wilson didn't look good for most of the game. He didn't look as good as he did Sunday night against the Chiefs, but he kind of picked it up toward the end of the game. And man, the end of the game though, the Broncos are trying to drive and tie the game, and Russell Wilson rolls out to his left, gets sacked by Quincy Williams, fumbled. Bryce Hall, not Brees Hall, not Brees Lightning, as some people call him, picks it up, scores a touchdown, 31-21 Jets. My favorite part was when Russell Wilson was going off to the sideline. Sean Payton just looked at him, was like chewing him out, like just wondering what he was thinking. Because this is a veteran. Russell Wilson's won a Super Bowl, been to another. He's a veteran, multiple-time Pro Bowler. That is something a rookie does.
Yeah.
He should be better at protecting the football, especially in a clutch situation like that.
Well, and also two things. First off, we'll talk when we do our live stuff next week. We'll talk more about some of the remarks that Marshawn Lynch made this past week.
Oh, yeah.
About Russell Wilson, because that also led Warren Sapp and Keyshawn Johnson to have an interesting back and forth about their days together. And so we'll talk about that going forward. But also, let's be honest, you can now tell Sean Payton does not want Russell Wilson as his quarterback. He is going to figure out however he can. And this is why I kind of am starting to wonder, is this maybe one of those tank that doesn't look like a tank? Because the Broncos now can start talking about, well, what if we get into the Caleb Williams sweepstakes? You get a stud quarterback like Caleb, and I know the rumors about him only having 5 teams. I would have to assume he would not hate being on Sean Payton's Broncos. But you get him with a 5-year rookie deal, that allows you to eat the cost of Russell Williams' big contract way easier.
And there's rumors that the Broncos are sellers right now.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So that's why I wonder, all the talk about the bravado of the Sean Payton, I kind of wonder if maybe in the behind the scenes, he was basically telling front office, look, we're going to try, but if we start off 1-4, 0-5, we might just tank for Caleb, and then we can figure out Russell Wilson going forward. But yeah, great win. Hey, and look, the Jets are still there, man. I mean, yeah, Miami started out 4-1, but Buffalo's 3-2. The Jets are 2-3. Patriots are basically out of it. If the Jets can figure out, run the ball, play defense, convert all your red zone chances, protect Zach Wilson enough to where he doesn't make a ton of mistakes, I don't want to be playing the Jets in 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, just pretend he's Mark Sanchez. It's the first couple of years he's quarterback.
Get some feet pictures for Rex Ryan.
Yeah.
Bring it on. No,
rely on the running game, rely on the defense. Those are your strengths. Play to that. You got Legatron at kicker. Just play an ugly game, and you should be able to win these games. They were doing it last year.
Yeah.
With Zach Wilson at quarterback and Joe Flacco at quarterback, but they have Brees Hall. Now they have Brees Hall and Dalvin Cook. Let them get 30 touches each or combined, and let's see what happens. That'll be their best chance to win.
I have a big prediction on Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook will be a Cowboy before the year's over.
Wow. What is your theory behind this?
Well, Dallas, I mean, look, I like Pollard. I think Pollard's a great running back, but Dallas, whether it's Ezekiel or whatever, in the red zone, Dallas has missed a guy that you can just give the ball to at the 5 and 3 carries, and he's going to eventually get you into the end zone. And Dalvin Cook's that type of player. Dalvin Cook's young enough, and his contract will be favorable enough, and you're not going to have to trade a ton for him unless he goes off, unless Brees Hall gets hurt and he goes off. He hasn't got a lot of touches for the Jets so far. And so I see him as being a big time trade guy for the Jets who might need a little bit of depth somewhere, or maybe even just a late draft pick, a 6th or 7th round. And I think and we talked about this when he was free. I never understood why Dallas wasn't talking with Dalvin Cook. I think Dalvin Cook is a more athletic Ezekiel Elliott as far as he can do the things Ezekiel does, but he can also catch the ball like Ezekiel did 5 years ago. So I just think that that's an obvious fit for a Dallas. Dallas is going to have to make a trade for something, even if it's just to kind of get the locker room. And I don't mean like this week. I mean, but by the time the trade deadline. Anyway, where else you want to go as we finish up?
I think that was it as far as NFL. I think we covered every game, which
Okay.
good job. I know you've been rambling all the day, so I didn't get much chance to talk. But no. Kansas, Minnesota. I'm not sure what the extent of Justin Jefferson's hamstring injury is.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's not the issue with Minnesota. I mean, when he was healthy, they were still losing. They're losing like they were in 2021, and then they kind of corrected it last year.
Good point. Good point.
It's just they lost all these close games in 2021. They were winning them in 2022, and now they're losing them again in 2023. Different coach, same situation. I'm not sure where they go with this, but they are turning the ball over still. That's not helping. I think they're leading the league right now.
Huh? Played a good second half against the Chiefs.
Yeah, they overall, I mean, they hung with the Chiefs. I'm not sure what that means though, because the Chiefs aren't really blowing out anybody except for the Bears. Kelsey, he came back from a high ankle sprain. He was medically cleared to come back. And maybe it wasn't that serious, but he caught a touchdown. Pretty clutch effort on his part. Big road win for the Chiefs. Beautiful uniform game. I think Minnesota played well overall. Anyway.
So when does Kirk Cousins get traded to the Jets? I mean, isn't that
that's the answer?
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't that be a natural move for Minnesota? You can't unless you're going to turn it around.
Yeah.
And again, in the NFL today, that happens more than we realize.
Mm-hmm.
But they are still now what, 1-4?
Yep.
They're 1-4, but they're only a -12. So they play in the next few weeks. The Bears, the Niners, the Packers, the Falcons, the Saints, the Broncos. Well, hang on. Bears, Raiders, Bengals.
That's not a bad stretch.
No, I mean, first off, the Niner game would be the perfect game where the Niners defense just doesn't quite play as well and Minnesota pulls off a game. But even if they don't, they lose that game. I still have them beating the Bears. I think the Packers is a 50-50. Falcons is 50-50. Saints will be an issue. Yeah. Broncos. But I mean, yeah, they could easily be 5-5 here in a few weeks.
Yeah. Very possible.
Well, but if they don't, let's just say that they don't, and let's say they are going south. Why are you not trading Kirk Cousins at the trade deadline? And why would the Jets not be willing to give up something pretty big? Not maybe a first round, but a second.
It's very hard to trade a quarterback during season.
I mean, but it happens.
It happens, but it's very rare. And I don't think they would just get rid of Kirk Cousins like that during season. It would be probably after the season if they're going to do anything. But this is last year.
I think so. But what's the point if the season's over? What's the point of keeping Kirk Cousins?
Nothing, because they haven't really done anything with him.
And so are you going to, again, it's the baseball move, which football does more. Football has finally got to the baseball where, okay, we're going to lose this guy at the end of the year anyway. We might as well get something for him. Yeah. But I still don't think Minnesota's done telling the story this year. Anyway, all right, so give me your final prediction of the Cowboys Chargers.
I believe Dallas will win. They'll go 4-2 going into the Week 7 bye. I think they'll win 21-17.
All right, I say 31-28. The Chargers will be up 21-3 at halftime. Austin Eckler is going to be on his way to a 50-foot fantasy football game, and then Kellen Moore does Kellen Moore things and starts trying to do 7 concept design plays that just Dallas does enough to win. And it just feels like, again, Dallas does bounce back from their bad losses usually pretty good. All right, that's going to do it. Anything else?
Okay. Jalen Hurts, most complete games this week.
We didn't really talk about that. Okay, we'll talk about that real quick. Thank you. First off, I keep saying it. The Rams, I know their record's not great. The Rams are not a bad team.
They've been competitive in all their losses, especially with the 49ers too.
Exactly, and they were competitive in this one early, but yeah, this felt like on a day that the Niners announced how good they are.
Mhm.
I think that the Eagles announced how good they were. Maybe not as pretty or as dominating, but still, we're clashing towards Eagles Niners in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean Jalen Hurts over 300 yards passing, 70 yards rushing, touchdown pass, touchdown run, tush push. Jalen Carter, Hassan Reddick had 2 sacks each. It was a complete game on his part. Not the prettiest win, but the Eagles have been winning not pretty most of this season anyway. So it was just another week. And the Rams are a tough out. They're them and the Cardinals, the two NFC West teams. I thought they were going to be cellar dwellers. They're playing really well this year.
Yeah, I can definitely see a path with the Rams. You know, they've got the Cardinals, the Steelers, the Cowboys, the Packers, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, the
Yeah,
Browns. I mean, if they stay healthy, the Rams could easily, within 6 games, be 4-4. What's that?
yep.
No, 4-5, and that puts you in today's playoff for the extra playoff spot. You know, anything around 500 will keep you in the playoff race.
Yeah. There's a lot of NFL to play. Cooper Cup's back for the Rams,
You look good.
yeah, and then they have 3 stud receivers: Tutu Atwell, Cooper Cup, Puka Nakuna. It's going to be a tough out for them if they can ever get consistent running game. Kyron Williams is pretty good, but if it stays consistent, the Rams will be tough outs going forward the rest of the
Oh,
season.
yeah, because I mean, in this game, this was just the Eagles just wearing them down.
Yeah,
You know, it was 17-14 at half for Philadelphia, and then Philadelphia's defense just put the clamps on the Rams in the second half. And it wasn't that the Rams or that the Eagles moved the ball a lot in the second half. They only scored 6 points. But that's good. Good ugly teams can play pretty or play ugly, and that's what the Eagles are. And this was a game that we can bring up the point that the Eagles have not looked great in any of their games. That is a valid thing. But I still think it speaks well of them that they can win these games going away when they don't even look good.
as long as you get the W, that's all that matters.
Yeah, this isn't the college game. All right, that's going to do it for week 6. He's in turn. No, I'm Terry Bennett. I want to thank Grandeur Pest Solutions. I want to remind you, you can follow us on Twitter at OutDrank You. You can also email us, odtcnfl@gmail.com. We're going to be changing that here in a couple weeks. In fact, maybe as early as next week. But until then, again, next week, Monday night, it's going to be a little different. We're going to record later. Well, we're going to record. Okay, so I totally forgot. I should have done this earlier. We're going to do the 90s versus 70s video we were going to do in August. We're finally going to do that where we kind of just break. It's just a chance to slob the knobs of those two great franchises and those two great eras. We're not really versus. We're just going to kind of pick out. Actually, more of the research, you realize how those teams were almost alike in a lot of their stats, from wins in the decade, losses in the decade, how many All Pros, how many Hall of Fames, all that kind of stuff. Then we're gonna do our normal week 7 show, and then we might, and I think we'll do the live thing on Monday night and just put it up on YouTube live. And if it's like the draft and we have 60 people watch, hey, 60 people can watch us get mad at the Cowboys and all that fun stuff. But until then, he's intern Noah. I'm Terry Bennett, and this has been OutDrank the Coverage on L4 Media.